The last little bit of that first property that I have to bulldoze, I got it just about done this morning. I figured, they told me that they're going to be over there picking up the dozer to move it to the second field here very shortly. And it's going to take them about an hour and a half to get it moved over. And so this morning, the insurance man, I have to get a general liability insurance policy for my my new field. The person who gave me the lease for my the 190-acre field, they want a general liability insurance policy, and the insurance man is not going to be there until tomorrow. And so the person who gave me the lease, they're telling me that they don't want me on the property, farming the property, doing anything on the property until after I have my my general liability insurance policy squared away, and I'll have that squared away tomorrow. So I figured I'd just call it an early day, and I got to go, and I got other things I got to go do, and so I'm gonna get started on that tomorrow. But on the first field, I got everything just about squared away. The big thing right now is that the whole thing about pond water is that my pond here, it's not the pond water, it's effectively it started rotting about a month ago. And so I need a clean pond water for me to put these animals on a field with just pond water. I need clean pond water, and so I need it to start raining. And I will know when the water is clean, because my water here will be clean, right? I mean, when my pond water cleans up, that's when I'll effectively know that the pond water is clean, and I can put the animals out on the different fields. And so and when it starts raining, when the pond water clears up, I will also herbicide and fertilize the properties. I'll herbicide and fertilize the properties. This morning, I was putting diesel in the dozer, and I remember I told myself before I got out there this morning, be careful with the diesel so I don't get it on my clothes. And the very first thing that I did when I got over there was put diesel in the dozer and just spill it all over my arm. And so my arm got completely soaked in diesel. And I have this long sleeve sunproof t-shirt, and it completely soaked my shirt in diesel. And so I was sitting there sucking up diesel fumes. And I was like, I'm just gonna call it an early day. I got maybe 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours in on that dozer this morning, and I cleaned up the property. The rest of the property that I had to clean up, I got it cleaned up. And so I left the dozer out there, and I told them it's ready to go, and they're gonna pick it up and move it to my second field. And doing that's gonna take about an hour and a half. And so I figured I'd just call it a day, and I'm gonna get out there tomorrow. I'm gonna meet the insurance man. And once the insurance man is out there, I will, get my insurance policy squared away, and then I will start working on that field. And the whole thing about all this, okay, and when I talk about this kind of stuff, and I say it's not funny, and it's not funny. All right, I talk about this stuff. It's not, and I'm not being malicious. I'm just looking to open up, your perspectives. All right, if you're watching, and you get I'm just looking to open up your perspective to things, because there's a very realistic possibility that, in terms of like my situation, I don't know anybody else at all, not one person, all right, that even does anything remotely like this. I don't know a single person that does anything like this, all right? And in terms of a realistic sense, I've always said that money is not an opinion, all right? Money is not an opinion. And if we take a look at it in terms of a fact, right, if I was put in a room with 200 people, 50 of those people would either be at zero, right? They have zero money left over all the time, or they would be in the negative, all right? And if you actually take a look at it in terms of a financial fact, if I was put in a room with about 200 average people, there's a very realistic possibility that I would make more money than all 200 of those people combined. All right, and this is also a very interesting way to look at it. And this is not funny, right? I'm not saying this to, this is not a joke. If anything, it's kind of sad. And, the whole thing about just opening up your perspective. I would bet, all right, because, here's the thing. Over the last 3 years of my life, over the last 2.5 years of my life, I legitimately managed to do so well for myself financially. I managed to do so well for myself that I am now a multimillionaire, and everything cost me nothing. That's what I managed to achieve over the last 3 years. And here's a very honest way to look at it. And I would be willing to take this bet. Let's say that there's whatever, 100 of you, 150 of you, 200 of you, whatever, watching this video, right? I'd be willing to take a bet with every single one of you. And if I took this bet with every single one of you on a 10-to-1 odds, I would still make money on this bet. Over the next 3 years, I've already said that over the next 3 years, I am realistically looking into pushing my business about another 1,000%. All right, I am looking to improve my business by about 1,000% over the next 3 years. I've got myself new lease properties. I'm farming more land. I've cleared more land. I bulldozed, another 30 acres. I'll be herbiciding the properties, and I'll be fertilizing the grass, and I'll be fixing up the fields. I'll be getting my next property squared away. I've got, about 375 acres that I am now working with. And so here's the bet. All right, here's the bet. I would bet that over the next 3 years, every single last one of you, I would be willing to bet that you either, go sideways or you go down. I would be willing to bet. I would bet anything. All right, I would legitimately, and I would take this bet 10-to-1. I would take this bet 10-to-1. I mean, very, very minimal improvement. If anything, you'll go downhill. I would take this bet. All right, and this is also what I mean by, this is not funny. This is not a joke, and I'm not being a malicious person about this. I don't know why this has happened on such a large scale. The whole thing about it is if you're born average, which is effectively everybody, if you are born average, that is effectively everybody. You have to look, in terms of a realistic sense, the world is on a bell curve, okay? Effectively 98.5% of the entire human population is between a 4.5 and a 5.5. You're all average. Everybody is effectively average, including me. I'm not some extremely, I'm not some whatever, right? I'm everybody's average, including me. All right, more or less. I'm not like sitting in a garage making black hole machines. I'm not, in whatever, et cetera, et cetera. All right, and even for this, I guarantee it. If you, and I've already said that this took me about 15 years to learn how to do, right? And I've been working on this 7 days a week. And the whole idea of the Grandmaster, right, of the Grandmaster experiment is that if you are born average, you have the capacity to learn how to do anything over a long period of time. You can learn how to do anything. All right, if you have a newborn baby, and granted that this baby is born average, you can teach this baby how to do anything legitimately. As long as you are of average IQ, you can learn how to do anything. All right, you can learn how to do anything. And and the whole thing about this is that it just is what it is. When you take a look at it, I actually made it, right? I actually made it. I do very well for myself. I managed to start myself a business and grow my business by about 1,000% in the last 3 years. And I would reasonably anticipate that I do another 1,000%. I may even do more than 1,000% over the next 3 years. There's a very realistic possibility that I end up growing my business by over 250% in just the next 8 months. All right, I'm already ready to go. I'm set to go. I've already cleared up a bunch of land. All right, effectively, I'm just looking for rain. Once I have rain on the forecast, I will go and I will herbicide and fertilize my fields. And the rain, it's got to be enough rain to clear up my ponds. And once my ponds are, looking like they're going to be clean, I can distribute out my animals. I can liquidate my big animals, and I can reinvest the earnings. But I would be willing to take this bet. I would be willing to take this bet. I would be willing to take this bet 10-to-1. All right, and I would take this bet with every single last one of you. It doesn't matter. All right, you're either going to go sideways or you'll go downhill your entire life. And I don't know why that happens. I don't. All right, I don't know why that happens. It's not funny. It's not a joke. All right, I don't know why that happens. All right, I don't, and I don't really even want to know why. I'm just here to give you, show you, it is what it is. All right, this is what I have observed in my life. Because the whole thing about my situation, money's not everything, right? Money's not everything, but it is something. I mean, money's not everything. At the end of the day, I didn't sell my soul to the devil, right? I didn't sell my soul to the devil for money. I do very honest work. At the end, in terms of a realistic sense, farming is one of those things that it's legitimately such a hard line of work. Farming is for almost anybody, I guarantee it. And that includes me. All right, farming is not some easy thing. Farming is very difficult work. Almost nobody wants to do it. And and even fewer people make it. All right, almost nobody makes it. I actually don't know anybody even doing 10%. All right, when it comes to farming, I legitimately make more money as a cattleman farmer. I make more money as a farmer than anybody on the planet makes doing anything. Just about. And it is by a lot. It's not even like it's not even like comparable. All right, it's not even like some relatively, it's not, and I don't compare myself with people. There's no reason. Why would I compare myself with people? It doesn't do anything, right? At the end of the day, the only thing that I really look to do is if anything, I compete with myself, right? I look to, when I take a look at it, am I doing better on a daily basis? Am I doing better on a daily basis, right? If yes, then that's all that matters. All right. You don't want, and I've always spoken about this. You don't want to be in a situation where you're going sideways or you're going down, because a lot of people, when you go sideways, you're not actually going sideways. You're actually going downhill very slowly. All right. And that's the worst case scenario. You're not going sideways. Chances are you're not going sideways, because the idea of going sideways is theoretically not possible. All right. You're not gonna walk some fine line between going downhill and going uphill. All right. Chances are you're going downhill very slowly. All right. You're not going sideways. You're going downhill very slowly. I mean, if you, even if you only, increased your income by, or not even by money, but but we can use money as a relative gauge for something like this, because why not? Right? Money's, as long as you don't sell your soul to the devil, as long as you don't sell your soul to the devil for it. I mean, there's a lot of honest things that you can do to make money. All right. But I can almost guarantee it. I mean, becoming successful, it's very, 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 very difficult. And as of a realistic sense, I don't know anybody that even does 10%. I don't. It's not some debatable thing. And just to put things in perspective, my net worth may go over like $15-20 million next year. All right, my net worth may genuinely triple by next year. All right, my net worth may legitimately go to like 15-20 million. All right, and over the last 3 years of my life, I legitimately managed to take myself from a borderline zero net worth, to about $5 or $7 million in the last 3 years. All right, and then in the next year alone, in just the next year, my net worth may go to 15-20 million. All right, my net worth may legitimately go to like $15-20 million in just the next 365 days. All right, I've got all of these lease properties squared away. I've got about 375 acres that I'm working with. I've cleared up about I've cleared up another 30 acres. Maybe I'm, right now, maybe I'm working with about what am I working with right now? Maybe I'm working with about I'm working with about maybe about 125 acres. Right now I'm working about 125 acres, and well, then I also got that other 50-acre field. That other 50-acre field, I haven't gone and taken a look at it, but if I include that 50-acre field, the person who leased me the property, the big one, the 190-acre field, they gave me another 50-acre field. But that 50-acre field, they told me it's already pristine and there's nothing wrong with it, and I can go and put cattle on it today if I felt like. But I haven't gone over there and taken a look at it. But that would put me at 175 acres, okay? I would effectively have about 175 acres ready to be farmed. And by about next week, I'll probably have over 225. I may even have over 250 acres that are ready to be farmed. All right. So I'm effectively working with about in total land area. In the total land area, I have about 375 acres total that I can work on. All right. And so I'm effectively I'm ready to go. All right. I've gotten all these things squared away. I'm doing very well for myself. I'm taking a look at everything, I got a lot of things squared away, and I would reasonably anticipate that I may legitimately end up growing my business by more than 250% in the next 365 days. So in the next year, I will legitimately grow my business by 250%. And if I do that, Not if, but when. It may take me a little bit longer, who knows? But when I accomplish it, I will accomplish that. And when I accomplish that, my net worth will go over $15 million. My net worth will go over $15 million. I will have, I'll probably have, $3 or $4 million in hard assets. All right, and I'll have my own business. And at that point, it's like, okay, and here's the thing. When you're like, even right now, if I legitimately want, I can effectively already buy anything on the entire planet. My net worth is maybe $5 or $7 million, and I can already buy anything on the entire planet. I can already buy it. It doesn't matter. If I wanted to go to if I wanted to buy, granted that we're not talking about, 98% of anything on the entire planet, I can already buy it. And here's the thing. It's like, even right now, like if I went to the bank and I said, you know what, I want to buy myself a Lamborghini. I want to buy myself, I want to buy myself I want to buy myself 150 cattle. And I want to buy myself a new piece of land. And all of this stuff combined is going to cost me whatever, $1.6 million. Right. And I went into the bank and I talked to the banker about it. Boom, there you go. Right. I mean, we'll give you a line of credit for this. You can go to the dealership for the Lamborghini and, for the Lamborghini, get a dealership, line of credit from the dealership. We'll take your property and give you a line of credit against your property, and you can use that as a down payment for the loan. And if you put 20% down and you're net positive about $15,000 a month, we'll give you an 80% loan for the property. And congratulations, there you go. Right, I mean, I can effectively just buy anything. It doesn't matter. And realistically, what am I going to do with the money? Well, over the next 8 months, I'll probably end up buying about 100 more cattle. That's what I'll end up doing. I'm not going to buy myself a Lamborghini. I'm not going to go into whatever else. I've already got myself 375 acres of land. I'm not going to go and buy myself a Lamborghini. What am I realistically going to do? I'll probably end up buying myself about 100 cattle. But, but when I do that, I'll effectively enter a situation where I'll be making, sometime between now and the next year, in the next 365 days, my income will go over $80,000 a month. My income will go over $80,000 a month. And, but here's the thing about the money is that in terms of a realistic sense, I can already buy anything on the entire planet. This is something that, this is something that I realized when I took a look at it, is that I can already buy anything on the entire planet. I can already buy anything. All right. I will take the money that I make in my business and I will put that money back into my business. And when I do that, I'll probably end up buying about 100 more cattle in the next 8 months. But I can already buy anything on the entire planet. I can already, more money doesn't really do anything. More money doesn't do anything. What's one realistic way that I can utilize this amount of money that I make? I make such a large amount of money. I don't even know how much money I make. That's the situation I'm in. I mean, when I realistically gauge it, I would reasonably anticipate that my net worth is somewhere between $5 and $7 million. And I probably accumulated 90% of this money in the last 365 days. I probably accumulated somewhere around $5 million in the last year. And in the first 2 years, maybe I generated $1 million or $2 million. But, in the last year alone, in the last 365 days, I probably, and then you're also going to have to include we'll see how far I get by the end of the year, but I will start reinvesting my capital here starting in the next month. All right. And I don't know exactly how far I'm going to get, but, effectively in just this year alone, I probably accumulated almost $5 million of my net worth. And over the next 365 days, my net worth will more than triple. My net worth will probably go over 15 million. All right, my net worth will probably go over 15 million. All right, and in terms of a financial, what does that look like? I'll probably have, $3 or $4 million worth of assets, and I'll probably be doing something about, I'll probably be, making myself about $80,000 a month, $100,000 a month, something like that. And, and I'm already set to do that. All right, you know, if anything changes, I will tell you that something has changed. But as of right now, I've already even cleared out about, you know, I've already even cleared out about 65 acres of land. I've already cleared about, you know, cleared out about another 65 acres of land. 60 acres of land. So, you know, I'm already sitting on you know, whatever, about 140 acres. And over the next week, I'll probably clear out, you know, over the next 5 days, I'll probably clear out another 50 or 60, 70 acres. All right. And if I need more land, I can just clear more land. I have more land. I have 375 acres total. I have 370 acres total. I can clear more land if I need it. All right, and I will clear it out as I go. But, you know, and as I, you know, but realistically, I would anticipate that, you know, my, you know, the amount, you know, I will probably end up making somewhere around, well, even right now, I make about $35,000 a month. You know, I make, you know, that's a reasonable, you know, that I would say, you know, it's a reasonable estimate. It's about 35,000 a month. All right, and you know, another way to look at this is over the next 3 months, over the next 5 months, I will end up buying myself about 100 additional cattle. And I will do that by just taking the money that my business makes and putting the money back into my business. All right, you know, I will just take my profits and reinvest them into my business, and that will expand my balance sheet by, you know, I would reasonably anticipate that I expand my balance sheet by somewhere between 200 and 250% in the next 8 months. In just the next 8 months, I would reasonably anticipate that I expand my balance sheet by about 250%. All right, but you know, the thing about it is that I already make enough money. Like, this cattle business already makes me enough money to buy anything effectively on the entire planet. Effectively anything. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, if I wanted to go and buy myself a Lamborghini, I could buy myself a Lamborghini. If I wanted to buy $1 million worth of real estate, I could buy myself $1 million worth of real estate, and I would still probably have $8,000 or $9,000 a month left over. All right, that's effectively the situation that I'm in. Because if I went to the bank and I said, give me, I want to buy this piece of real estate, and then I gave them a list of, or they took a look at my assets and they said, well, you know, we'll give you this $1 million. We'll give you a loan for 800 grand if you give us a line. You know, if you hold your property as collateral, and for 200 grand, and you use that 200 grand as a down payment for the piece of land, we'll give you the $800,000, you know, as the loan, and you know, and then we will give you the property, and you know, that's realistically going to be like $6,500 a month. Right, and then let's say I go and I buy myself a Lamborghini on top of that, and I go to the Lamborghini dealership and I buy myself a Lamborghini, and I lose $50,000 on that Lamborghini over a year. That's $4,000 a month. I would still have $4,000, $5,000 a month left over after I bought $1 million worth of real estate and a Lamborghini. That's realistically what my financial situation looks like. What am I going to do with the money? Am I going to go and buy myself more land? And am I going to buy myself a Lamborghini? No, I'm not going to do that. I leased property, right? I leased I got about 375 acres, and what am I going to do with the Lamborghini? All right, I'll probably buy myself an F-350. What am I going to do with the money? Well, instead of buying myself a Lamborghini and $1 million worth of real estate, I'll probably just end up buying myself about 100 cattle. And I will do that over about the next 8 months. I would reasonably anticipate that it takes me about 8 months to do that. And when I do that, I will have expanded my balance sheet by 250%, and I would not have used any leverage. I will not use any debt. When I use debt, I will tell you that I have used debt. All right, when I use debt, I will tell you that I have used debt, but I will only use debt once I have reinvested my own capital and stabilized the asset. Why would I use debt when I'm sitting on money? If I already have my own money, why would I use debt? I will reinvest my money first, stabilize the asset, then leverage against it. That's the only time I will take debt. And if I decide to use debt, I will tell you how much debt I am using. You know, but you know, in terms of, you know, but that's you know, that's my financial situation. I can already effectively buy anything on the entire planet. If I went and bought myself, and the thing about this is, and you know, the whole idea about buying land is that the reason I cannot include land as an expense, is because if I bought land, I would probably just end up making more money on it. Land does not cost me anything. Within a reasonable margin, land does not cost me anything. This land does not cost me anything. All right, this land makes me a profit. So if I was legitimately going to go spend money, I don't even know how I would do that. I mean, I would have to go and buy like 7 Lamborghinis. All right, like if I was legitimately going to spend money, like spend money with the intentions of losing the money, I don't even know how I would do that. It's not even possible. Like I can't sit in my living room and, whatever, right? And use my air conditioner until a point where I have no more, whatever, right? No more money. I can't, I don't even know how, it's not even possible to spend this amount of money. It's not. What am I going to do with the money? What have I reasonably decided to do with the money? I'll probably end up buying myself about 100 cattle over the next 8 months. That's what I am going to do with the money. All right, just to put things in terms of a numerical perspective, if I were going to take a look at it from a factual standpoint, my net worth right now is probably between $5 or $7 million. And in the next 365 days, my net worth will probably go over 15 million. It will probably go over 15 million. All right. That's a very honest way to look at it. I got a lot of land squared away. I just need to fix up a little bit of fencing. I've cleared up a bunch of land. I need to put some herbicide on the property, and I need to fertilize the grass. And once I do that, I have a bunch of cattle that are ready for liquidations. I will take the cattle, I will liquidate them, and then I will take the money and reinvest that money back into my business, and I will grow my business. All right, and and as I go, whenever I decide that I'm going to take leverage, I will utilize leverage. But that's a very it's just a very honest way of looking at it. And and here's the thing, and I've the whole thing about perspective, and I'm giving you my perspective, and I don't know why this happened on such a large scale. I don't understand, and in all honesty, I don't even want to know why it's happened, but I would be willing to bet. And then the whole thing about it is, compete with yourself, right? I mean, compete with yourself. I mean, look to improve yourself. There's, I don't go into, whatever. Oh my God, Elon Musk makes more money than me. Oh my God, Warren Buffett makes more money than me. Who cares, right? At the end of the day, I make enough money to not worry about money. That's what matters, all right? I mean, I don't, having money problems is one of those things where if you're having money problems, you're probably having money problems because you're an idiot. That's the big issue, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, you can make $50 million a year and you could still have money problems. You can make $50,000 a year and you could still have money problems. You don't want to be in a situation where you're having money problems. That's all that's really important about money. After you have hit a point where you're not concerned about money, once you have hit a point where you're not concerned about money, right? And I used a man named Mr. Earl as an example of this. Right, Mr. Earl works in a parking lot as a parking lot attendant, and he makes $12 an hour, but he's got $1 million worth of investments. And when I take a look at his investment portfolio realistically probably makes 7 or 8% a year. And so, I mean, Mr. Earl sitting there making, and this was 10 years ago. If he, and I looked him up the other day. I looked him up a couple weeks ago, and I believe that the man has unfortunately passed away. I believe he passed away last year, but he would have been a multi-millionaire, right? He was a millionaire 10 years ago, and in the last 10 years, stocks and investments skyrocketed. So, Mr. Earl would, if he's making 8% return on his portfolio, that's $16,000 a month on just his portfolio, right? As long as you're not concerned about money, that's all that matters about money. Money isn't everything. It isn't everything. Money is not everything. There's no reason to sell your soul to the devil for money. There is no amount of money that will make you happy. But intentionally being poor is not an intelligent thing to do. All right. If you're going out of your way to be poor, you're kind of an idiot. Why would you go out of your way to be poor? Don't ever choose to be poor, right? Money's not everything. Money's not everything. But if you're having money problems, I mean, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to be miserable, and you're also probably having money problems because you're an idiot. I can almost guarantee it. All right. There's a lot of ways to make money. There's a lot of ways to make money. It's not impossible. If you have average IQ and you legitimately find one thing and you stick to it for the next 15 years of your life and you work on it 7 days a week, there is a 98% chance that you succeed. All right, as long as you find an investment that you understand and you understand how the game is played and you stick to it and, you do it for the next 15 years of your life, there is a 98% chance that you succeed, granted that you are of average human capacity. You know, making money is not complicated. It's very simple as long as you understand how it's done. If you legitimately just went and bought the S&P 500 and you bought whatever, $2,000 worth of the S&P 500 every month for the next 15 years of your life, after about 7 years, you would begin to feel the effects of wealth, and within about 7 years. If that was all you did, if that was legitimately all you did, I mean, realistically, it would take 7 years. All right. It's not some complicated thing. All right. If that was all you did, if you bought $2,000 worth of the S&P 500 every single month for the next 15 years of your life, that is all you would have to do. All right. That's all you would have to do. There is no getting rich overnight. I talk about this all the time. There is no get rich quick. Get rich quick is a lie. It doesn't work. Even if you do manage to get rich quick, like you won the lottery, you went and you won the lottery, the chances of you going from being poor to having won the lottery and then living a wonderful life is almost 0%. All right, getting rich, it takes a long time. It took me about 15 years. It took me about 12 years before I even really started making any money. And this is like my 14th, 15th year doing this. And at this point in time, I am not concerned about money at all. If anything, the amount of money that I am making has actually hit a point where it's skyrocketing upwards. I would reasonably anticipate that my net worth goes over $15 million in the next 365 days. I'm already in a situation where I can buy anything. All right, and what have I decided to do what have I decided to do? I got myself more lease property. I got myself about 375 acres now. And the big idea is to buy myself more cattle. I would realistically anticipate that I end up buying about 100 cattle on top of the animals that I have already. I would end up with about 120 cattle in the next 8 months. And that would be with me just reinvesting my earnings. If I didn't use any debt, if I used zero debt, I will have 120 cattle in the next 8 months. I will use debt, and when I use debt, I will tell you how much debt I used and et cetera, okay? I will tell you about how much debt I used and why I used the amount of debt that I did.